let's start with pitches, and then we'll jump into this book. So, my name is Mickey Gamonal with Gamonal Tutors, ASVAB Domination. If anybody's joining the military or needs help with the ASVAB, you can find me on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram.
Fantastic. Paula Williams with ABCI. We help aviation companies sell more of their products and services with marketing services and sales training.
And I do the back-end stuff for her, and then if we get a business client in that needs some business consulting, I'll consider that.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dave Pearl. I'm with the flywriter.com. I help put words to the messages that aviation businesses want to convey. I like to say that I give wings to the message that they want. You can reach me at dave@theflywriter.com.
Awesome. Cool. And today we're talking during ABCI's Business Book Club. And today we're talking about trust, belief, influence, and rapport. 13 ways to open minds by talking to the subconscious mind. The subtitle is totally freaky, right? Talking to the subconscious mind. But overall, I personally, I'll lead off with what I thought of the book. I liked it a lot. I like that it's very short. It's like booklet length. It is 86 pages, 88 pages. And that's super easy to read. You can knock it out in an afternoon. And I felt it was pretty powerful, in my opinion. I thought that the pages weren't wasted. There wasn't a ton of fluff. And I also felt like it gave me a lot of insight into how best to sell my products and services. How about you, Mom? What do you think?
Well, first impressions, I have a prejudice against, whenever I look at a sales book, I think, okay, well, that's fine for retail, but it will never work in aviation, So that's one prejudice that I bring in. And another prejudice is that I love the hefty Franklin Covey kind of books, and so you're looking at a thin book that is written by somebody that specializes in MLM and, is talking about what I would on the surface call cheap tricks. So that was the prejudice that I dragged into the book. But having read it, and I'm also reading the biography of Benjamin Franklin at the same time, which is, weird coincidence. But reading some of the stuff that he was writing as letters to these counts in France and stuff like that during the Revolutionary War. And, well, just a real quick story.
Yeah.
In American history, the Revolutionary War was pretty much won by the French. If Lafayette and his buds hadn't come in and saved the day, and, they hadn't gotten a lot of money to pay the American troops, about halfway through the war, it would not have gone the way that it was, and we would still be British, right? And a lot of that is due to Benjamin Franklin and the influence that he had at Louis XVI's court. And so he was, you could say these are cheap tricks that only work on stupid people. Actually reading this book and going, oh my gosh, that is exactly what he was doing, and it worked, And John Adams and other people were saying, he doesn't even speak French very well. He's not wearing the right clothes. He's not representing the United States very well, but he sure was influencing those people to write checks. And, looking back on it now, I'm going, how did he do that? And it was actually using a lot of the same techniques that are in this book. We all agree on these things. Most people believe this. And most people believe that we are endowed by our creator, and, all of those things that kind of come together. So it changed my mind, which is hard to do. I'm actually much more impressed with the book today than I was 3 weeks ago, before I actually dug into it, and also dug into thinking about some of these tricks and how they've been used in different times in history, and they can be used for good or evil. And he tells you that. So that's, yeah. Anyway, first impression.
Cool. Very good. Very good. Go ahead, John.
It looked to me like it was a page, figuratively speaking, out of one of the sales courses I took years ago. I I have probably taken most of the major sales courses in the U.S. at least. Not because that's what I wanted to do, it's just because that's the way things worked out. And this one was by a life insurance company. And it was 2 weeks. And on the last day when we left, the gent that was running the course said, now he said, here's what I want you to do when you leave this building. He says, somewhere in the sidewalk, you find a small stone. So pick it up, toss it up in the air, and whichever way it goes, you go that way. And every person you meet, you sell. It works. Mm-hmm. Not the stone part. But what I mean is what they taught, which was using this book. I sold every person I met until I was tired of talking to people all the way back to the car. And a lot of the people probably couldn't afford it, probably didn't need it, but I sold it. And to me, looking back on it, that's pretty darn amazing. Mm-hmm. You know, because everybody else in the class did the same thing. I didn't even talk to anybody else after that, but I'm quite sure they all had the same.
Well, that's what's wild is people go into debt all the time. You know, people will buy things that they can't afford all the freaking time.
Which is not my problem.
Right. It's not something that you could prevent, even if you try.
I mean, and it is and isn't. As a sales guy, it's not my problem. I didn't like the ethics of that situation because I was selling people that I knew couldn't afford it, so I didn't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, it was an interesting sales course, and this just looks like, they even use the same terms of pacing and so on down through, just like we just took a day and a half out of that course and put it in that book.
For sure.
Right. And, so pacing, just to give a couple of examples, were there any and Mickey also, were there any particular phrases that you found powerful? And I know, Mickey, you and I had a conversation earlier about working some of these into the first couple of seconds of a cold call, or working some of these into the first couple of seconds of a conversation. Were there any particular phrases, just to let the people know that haven't read the book, how that worked for you?
I'll go first, John, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So as a general synopsis, like this page kind of covers everything.
I know, that's kind of cool that they summarize the whole thing in one page.
Yeah, I love it when books do this because it really makes the point that like this is our information. And I'm a math guy, so I really like it. Like I like examples and like very clear and concise statements. But it looks like mostly it's pacing, smile at people. And then the magic phrases are going to be number 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So those are basically, you say, oh, most people do this and everybody knows that. Everybody says this. And then, well, you know how. Everybody needs a air copywriter or something along those lines. Or there's an old saying that, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Whatever phrases you want to use or whatever statements you want to use, you put these words in front of them, and supposedly it sells. And it resonates. It doesn't necessarily sell, but it definitely resonates, right? Like if you say most people need help with math, mm-hmm. Most people will agree with that.
Right?
Because people you start to feel it nodding your head. And then if you're smiling more often, that helps too. Like everybody knows that
if you smile more often.
Right? It's just hard not to string all of the magic because you read it and then you start stringing them all together, because that's kind of like one of the last exercises. But yeah, for me, I really like most people and everybody knows. I like both of those because I think, especially when it comes to ASVAB tutoring, what I do, people come to me with a lot of shame. They're really embarrassed of how they acted in high school, how they didn't learn, how, they can't pass this test that was written for 7th grade, So when I start to say everybody, most people, and use those types of phrases, there's a certain level of comfort that comes up. like, oh, it's okay.
Yes,
it's
you're
all right.
not alone. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knows having a tutor will help you. Everybody knows it's hard to study. And that's what killed me in the very beginning of the book is like, if somebody's talking to you, it's because they want to do business with you. Mm-hmm. And really all you're doing is talking yourself out of a sale 9 times out of 10. And like, at least in my experience, I probably have like a 20%, 10% close rate, nothing miraculous by any means, but I have a program that I really believe in. I have something that I know makes a difference if they stick with it and show up. But yeah, I know that I'm talking myself out of sales. So I know using this more would help me more. But yeah, those are some of the phrases and things that stuck out to me. How about you, John?
Not sure. I mean, the problem is that my mom raised me to ignore all those phrases and think that people that use them will get me to do things. Mm-hmm. Want to think for yourself, and because somebody else or everybody else or best-selling or anything else, doesn't matter. Think it through, do your research, and then do what you're going to do. So, does it help? Likely, the majority of people. There are some of us, at least I expect there's more than just me. Yeah. I mean, but when I go somewhere and somebody, what's our best selling is that I really don't give a shit. I don't care what the best selling is. Talk to me about it. Tell me about the product.
Yeah.
Tell me about its capabilities. Talk to me about that. I'll decide if it's best selling for me. You won't. All you're going to do is turn me off. So I had that baggage going. So I'm probably not a good one to say this. Have I used some of those things? I've used all of those things from one time or another, but I pick and choose where to use them.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a caution sign for people in the aviation industry. You don't want to use too many of these, and you don't want to, but what they're talking about is like the first 15 minutes of working with somebody. You have to be able to back that all up with all the charts and graphs and data and everything else and so forth and so on. But if you summarize at the beginning and the end of the conversation, just like Mickey was saying, having a summary once you already are, this is what I read in this book. Now here it is all summed up for me. That just saves me time and energy, and we all need that, right?
I read somewhere, or we had something somewhere that says you have 7 seconds to sell yourself.
Yeah.
And you've got 7 more, and what you're doing in that first 7 seconds is selling the next 7 seconds. Mm-hmm. So you've got to do this for the first couple of minutes before they say, "Oh, this guy's on a reel." Right?
Yeah. Then you can drag out the truckload of data.
Yeah, then you can do all this other stuff.
Right. Dave, what do you think? I know you're a writer, so of course word choice is huge, especially in that first headline or opening paragraph.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking the only thing I can relate this process to is, my days as an attorney, because I didn't sell products, things like that. But what I tried to sell was either a concept, the concept being, we're right, or, we're not as bad as you think we are. A lot of times in cases, it was a win if maybe you went into the case thinking that, we probably have about a third of the responsibility here, but the other side was saying, no, you got 100%. And the reason they wanted 100% was because they couldn't get anything from anybody else. And so they were targeting you. And so we would try to sell something and present it as being reasonable. I heard, the plaintiff's attorneys typically, because I usually was on the defense side defending an aviation company or a pilot sometimes, they were full of the histrionics of how bad, how ugly, how terrible, what we did was. And these were bad things, You don't usually have an airplane crash and people are the same afterwards, even if they survive. So we had to deal with a lot of grisly things, and the challenge was always not to make it sound like we didn't do anything wrong, but to make it seem reasonable that what we did was, if it's not forgivable, at least it was understandable, and to get the jury thinking along the lines of, hey, it could have been me that did this. This is not $50 million that we're going to do. Let's try to keep it, some sort of reasonable tone. And so, I think that the way we would present that is, we would try to be even-handed in our approach to, especially to the injured party, the widow, or, the mother who lost a child, or whatever it was, because that's the world that we were in. And there was no way we could sugarcoat that, hey, this is going to be comfortable. The plaintiff side would have pictures if there were survivors of horrible injuries with all kinds of ugly looking devices sticking out of the people, and so we would just try to weather that and come on as we're the reasonable side here. Bad things happen to good people, and so forth, and establishing trust in us, meaning that we were not going to be I guess the charlatans. We always tried to portray the plaintiffs as they're the fast talking, carnival barker type guys, trying to raise the price, and we always tried to present ourselves as understanding, as reasonable, as trying to keep an even keel, trying to make a bad world, put some way for the other side to process that. Now, that's the way I've always tried to approach, anything, from a reasonable, use logic, use reason to get something across. I've always shied away from any sort of formulaic technique. Start with this, and then you start with this, and you start with this. And I don't know that I'd ever be comfortable doing that.
Yeah.
Right. A proven 3-step process.
Yes, that alarms start going off in my ears when I hear that. I try to, the title of the book, I know trust is in there and so forth, and I think that the first way you establish trust is your presence. That's the first thing people are going to see is you. How are you standing there? The look in your eyes, mannerisms and so forth. And that's what I've always tried to emphasize in, I guess, selling, if that's what you want to call, portraying, articulating a position that you start with, this is reasonable, this makes sense. And I'm more likely to get a positive determination from the person that I'm trying to convince using that, I think, than I would be saying, well, here's a bunch of, I could throw a lot of facts and so forth out there. But in any case that I was involved in, there were always far too many facts for a person to reasonably process. So it was always selection. What did I think were the most important things that were going to help them make a decision?
Right.
So I don't know if that was pertinent to the discussion or not.
Oh, no, it was great. How long do you think you had with a juror before they had made up their mind? I mean, if you walked up in front of a jury for the first time, they see you for the first time. How long do you think you had, and what did you do about that?
Well, it would depend on the nature of the trial, but
yeah,
jury selection, at least in California, I had a chance to see it in Pennsylvania, and it was much different there. But the judges we appeared before, and maybe they made a determination, given how serious the case was, they gave us more time with the jury. At one case where it took us 3 weeks to pick a jury. And
wow.
So the guys that are going to be on the jury are witnessing you interacting with the other jury members. And I don't know that the layman understands how important that process is, because you're trying to establish who you are right before the juror is ever in the box. You go through jury selection, you put, I don't know, depending on how big the trial is going to be and how many people you think you're going to kick off, you'll put 12 people in the box, and you may have another 12 that are going to be alternates, because you think it's going to go for 6 weeks, might go for 6 months, and you're going to lose people for various reasons. you may have to replace the whole jury box. We had one where we put 6 new jurors in during the course of the trial. So you were trying to establish in the minds of everybody, I mean, the people that are out that haven't even been called in the jury box, because you know right away you're going to kick some people out that have been put in the box. So it starts from the very first day that you're dealing with the juror as far as trying to establish who you are. You're trying to sell some points of the case, give everybody an understanding of kind of where you're going by the questions that you're asking the jury. And again, the judges in California let us talk to the jurors directly. In Pennsylvania, the judge interviewed the juries, and maybe you could talk to the judge, say, Judge, could you raise this question? But he wouldn't allow us to talk to the jurors individually. So, I think you do form an impression right away. Immediately, they're going to decide whether they kind of like you or they kind of don't. But it could be several days, in my experience, and sometimes it could be several weeks before you ever get to opening statement. And then, you've got a loaded gun every time you open your mouth, or maybe a gun to your head, because I've seen, I saw attorneys completely turn off a juror and multiple jurors with the way they would question somebody. Yeah. And the way they would, like, very seasoned attorney made a say, says, well, even you could understand this, couldn't you? And I saw that he lost the jury at that point. We weren't even 2 days into the trial. Right. But, when we interviewed the jurors afterward, because they found for us, he said that attorney put us down. Yeah. He was talking about something that, was a little sophisticated or something, and he put down the witness who the jurors loved. And, well, even you, like, you idiot, even somebody like you could understand that. And, they found for us. Yeah. Well, see, and I feel like that's the inverse of most people, or everybody knows, right? To say, even you should know this. Right. Yeah. Like that's the opposite, right? So it is, I think there's actually a lot that you're saying that coincides with this book. Exactly. Even though like, what you're saying is you try to be very logic based. I completely agree. But the thing, when you say the word most people or everyone knows, you're trying to be logic based too, right? It's just a different method of using that logic, in my opinion. That's the way it seems to me.
Well, and one thing that you said hit me, as super relevant from the book, because he's Big Al, the guy that wrote the book, said, and that's another thing that turned me off, was the Big Al. Anyway. Yeah, this guy exactly. Like, somebody that you call Big Al is not somebody that I trust right off the bat. But it turned out he's much smarter than I thought he was. But, at one point he talks about the physical sensation of words bouncing off the prospect's forehead. You can tell when that starts to happen, when you've turned them off, or when the opposite of that is when they start to nod along with you and they start to get it and they start to go, okay, this guy kind of gets me. I'm going to at least give him a fair hearing. There's a point in every conversation, and it's usually, within the first 7 seconds or 15 seconds or whatever time frame it is not long, before he's either decided he's going to resist or he's going to hear you out. And, I think that's exactly what this book is good for, is that first 7 to 15 seconds. After that, you're on your own. But well, what do you think? Yeah, go ahead.
I would agree that hearing someone out, like if they, again, just like you said, if they're talking to you and you're hearing them out, it's because they're hoping that you can solve their problem. Yeah. So if they're hearing you out, you probably already made your sale. Yeah. I think it's a very short bridge to cross from getting that trust to just selling it, because they're talking to you. They want what you have. So if they're listening to you and they believe you, that's it. Like, I feel like there's very little left to do at that point. Mm-hmm. How about you, John?
Yeah, I listen to what you all have to say. Um, and it was very, what you said, Dave. I've always sat on one jury, and so I was quite interested to hear what you had to say with respect to all that, because I experienced a lot of that, and toward the end of the jury selection, which in this case it was in Oklahoma, but it took 2 weeks to select the jury, and toward the end of when they selected the last jury, then I thought, great, now we can get on with it. And they said, Mr. Williams, sir, said, would you have a problem being the, what do they call it?
The foreman?
The foreman. I said, I don't have it. Nobody else does. What am I going to say? I've never done this before. And what was very interesting was that 6 weeks later, we had a hung jury. And so, and the other interesting thing, well, this is not on topic of the book, but it's on topic of sales, because people in there have to sell their opinion to other people.
On the jury have to sell the other jurors.
You bet.
Yeah.
It's a real sales opportunity, and people's lives hang in the balance. Only people in there don't realize it. Sometimes they do. But some people's mind is so made up, hard over yes or no, guilty or not guilty, that it doesn't matter what anybody said. And that's what happened in our case.
So you ran into some slammed shut doors of other jurors that you couldn't get past.
No, nobody could.
Yeah.
No amount of logic. And we called for evidence to be brought in to talk about stuff that they would allow. Just there was no way. I mean, this person should never have been on a jury, because this person failed to even consider the possibility of the alternative. I mean, it was just like that part of her brain didn't function.
I wonder if that person had been predisposed because of something that somebody said. You know, they're not going to believe this witness, or they're not going to believe this defendant, or whatever, because of one of these things that came from the book. You know,
unknown, but I saw several things take place in there now that I'm older and look back. Mm-hmm. There was a sale thing going on, but if you've ever watched the Waterfront movie, because that tells you how it's all about a jury trial. Mm-hmm. And it's all about facilitation and how you, as the foreman, are supposed to make sure everybody gets their say and guide it ultimately toward a conclusion. I'd be a lot better at it today. But anyway, the selling was just, I look back and just amazed, because even then I could sit there and amazed. I could see all these people, and some people that would just jump out without any hesitation and say their position and why, and some that would try to do what this book says and soft pedal it in.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't know that I saw any difference with respect. You know, there's some people, after a couple of days, 3 or 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, various people would say, oh, I hadn't thought about that part. Finally, something sort of clicked, you know?
Right.
And then this last person, I mean, we'd take another vote, and it was always no.
And the more they dig in, the more they dig in.
Oh, yeah. I don't know nothing to do about it.
Interesting. Yeah.
So, with respect to sales, I mean, that was before some of the sales courses I went through, but
Being a better salesperson actually would make you a better citizen, I think, because, you know, I think
Everything you do, you're selling everything. When you talk to somebody, you're selling your thoughts, your position, what you want. I mean, it doesn't matter. And so are they.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a give and take. Even if you're not trying to sell a product or service, you're selling a thought. It's all about sales. And most people don't realize that. Being an attorney, I know you realize it. You may use the word convince, but it's selling nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, you had to sell your client. You had to sell the judge. You had to had to sell the jury. So
yeah, Dave, the way you were talking about jury selection, it just reminded me so much of like growth mindset when it comes to clients. Like jury selection, you just swap the guy out. You know, like you're swapping people out, and that's powerful. Like this book doesn't talk about how many people want what you have to sell. This book talks about how to just sell to anyone.
Yeah, it's very specific, which I love.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for exactly what you were talking about, where there's more people. There's always more people, you know, and that's really powerful. It's a powerful frame of mind to be in, for sure.
Right. You know, the way it works, I mean, and it's different from state to state, and probably from courtroom to courtroom. The attorneys go in with the trial judge ahead of time, and you kind of establish the parameters. You know, how many for cause you have unlimited. If somebody comes in and says they won't listen to the judge, you get dinged. The judge dings them, and then each side typically has a number of peremptory challenges they can make. They don't have to state their reason. That's a matter for that a lot of civil or social commentators are talking about, because you can construct a jury. I've got 5 black people on the jury. I've got 5 challenges. I'll challenge them all. So you can shape the jury, but at least as it stands right now, you're allowed to do that. You don't have to have a reason. You say, no, I'd just like to thank and dismiss, but you only have maybe 3. I think the most we ever had was 6. And so you get to choose them, to get rid of them, but there's always a risk that the person that comes in will be worse, or at least from your view, worse for you than before. There's jury research, they all fill out a questionnaire, and you get the questionnaires to read through. But every single jury trial that I had, and I didn't have that many, 5, 6, whatever it was, we got a chance to talk to the jurors afterwards. And you would pigeonhole, you can have all these notes that, this juror is this, he'll be good for us, or she'll be bad for us. And I just remember that trial I was talking about, where the guy totally, the plaintiff's attorney totally, set the jury on the wrong foot. There was one juror, we said, this juror hates us. And, we said, she's not going to support, because, the body language, the way she was, look at us and so forth. We thought, God, she's going to be leading the charge, for the other side. When we questioned them, we won the case. And so as a matter of, we took the whole jury out to lunch. Not at a big, like Marie Callender's or something like that, where we invited them out to lunch and said, because it was 12-0 in our favor and all that stuff. And, I don't know that everybody came, but she did.
Wow.
So we had a chance to, talk with them, away from the courtroom, and, have a few libations and things like that. And, she said, man, I was on your side from day one.
Wow.
And we said, God, we sure didn't read it that way. So you can't always tell. And, but it was a very interesting process. And, the things that we thought were important about a case, I swore I had the closest thing to a slam dunk cross-examination of a witness. I said, man, that proves my whole case right there. And I went out feeling so good about that, thinking, and they came back in our favor. And we asked them, asked the jury afterwards, well, what did you decide the case? And they came up with some reason that was completely, different than what we thought the case turned on. And so I asked the jury, well, what about this point? Says, oh, we don't even remember that.
I don't remember that. Oh my gosh.
And I went out thinking, man, I was slapping five. Yeah, we got the guy to say exactly what I wanted to say. Man, we won the case. Yeah, we won, but not for that reason. So
right. Well, and I think a lot of, especially in aviation, the salespeople are so specialized in their, and they think, oh, well, this is my strongest point. This is the absolute way that we totally beat the competition. And so I'm going to harp on this at length and with charts and graphs and they don't pay enough attention to this first 15 seconds. And I guess an analogy to a jury pool for the sales process is your top 10, right? So you've got your top 10 that you're working through and kind of qualifying and going, well, he looks likely, he looks unlikely, but until you get a yes, no, or a not yet, and you have to be objective, and curious about these people, because I've been surprised so many times, making a sale to somebody that I thought was just grouchy and looking at, making me justify every single thing, whereas some people who were nodding and smiling the whole time turned out to be no sales. And, I would spend an awful lot of time with somebody that I thought liked me and turned out to be a complete opposite. Either they weren't qualified or they were just a good actor or whatever. I don't know, but something.
Okay. So I think it certainly pays to not take yourself too seriously and be more open to what the feedback that you're getting, and you probe that feedback to make sure that what you think you're getting is what they're sending.
Right.
So
Closing those hatches, right?
Okay.
Find out what they're, like the Sandler, find out what their pain is and find out what they're really looking for by purchasing your product, and then hammer that if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Being client focused is key. Even though this is all about being not client, be everyone focused, right?
Yeah.
So I just want to kind of wrap with basically the paragraph that I created using his phrases.
Nice.
I don't know if anybody else, Mom, do you have some? I know that you're studious and everything. I don't know if you wrote stuff down for like how you would snatch his words and use them in your business.
I've got like about 6 different paragraphs that I'm still kind of working on for different products of ours. So they're not really at the point of sharing, but I will do that in the blog post for this article. So
cool.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear yours though. That's cool.
Cool. So yeah, I was gonna, what I tell my students, and I don't say this verbatim, but I wrote it down so that I could have something to kind of fall back on, because the saying is you fall back to your highest level of preparation, right? You don't actually, the adrenaline doesn't work unless you have practice. So right. That's when the adrenaline works. So what I have written down is most people struggle with math knowledge and arithmetic reasoning, which are 2 of the main subtests that most people do struggle with. Everybody knows books and videos are online for free, but most people need more help. There's most people. Everyone who takes my class increases their confidence in the 4 key subjects. And so those are my sentences. The other thing that I decided I would use is most people who enroll in my program start with the booklet and then join my main program. And I'm going with that because I feel like that's a much easier sell, because it's a lower price value. But it may not be, honestly, it might not offer as much value. So either way, I'm still working on it too. But I think spending time with this booklet did help me as far as becoming a better salesperson overall. So,
nice. So it sounds like you've really applied it to your pipeline.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I try to write a new email every month, especially when it's coming up on a new month to start a new class, to send out to all the subscribers that I've gained over the years. Or over the months. But yeah, so I send that out, and I'm trying to implement more of these phrases, because I do think they're actually pretty good. I think they're pretty solid.
Right. We started working with a AI tool that does copywriting. And I've noticed that it includes a lot of these phrases. And the reason that that's interesting is because it takes, for example, if you ask it for 10 Facebook posts on a topic, it will use some interpretation of, some data of these are the best performing Facebook posts about this topic. And they have a lot of these phrases in them. So I just thought that was interesting as well, kind of a neat tie-in to last week's topic. And yeah, David, don't be scared. This is not something that's going to replace a real copywriter anytime soon. But the neat thing about it is you can take a really good sales letter and then ask it for Instagram posts or Facebook posts or tweets or something that's specific. And it does a pretty good job of chopping up something that's already good writing and making it the right format and emphasizing the right, topics and things like that for that platform. So it's a machine. So it's good at dealing with machines.
Well, the machines could fly the plane better than I could. I remember that.
There you go.
Cool. Any final words on the book? Anything else that anybody wants to add? Or it's a general idea? Anything anybody has?
I'm feeling a little bit better about sales calls, because it's the first 15 seconds that usually kills me. I'm usually great once I get past the brick wall, but the brick wall is the hardest part for me is, getting past that brick wall. So this was very specifically about that problem. And I'm really excited that we have a very specific solution to that very specific problem. So that's cool.
Cool. Yeah. And then next, 2 weeks from now, it's going to be Secrets of a Master Closer. So that should be hopefully the other 90% of the call. So we'll see.
There we go. It will be a longer book, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It is a longer book. But actually, it's not that much longer. It's 175 pages before the appendices and so forth. So
double the length.
Double the length.
So 2 afternoons.
2 afternoons, yeah. Not too bad.
Sweet. Cool. Well, I'm gonna pitch out if everybody's good. Let's go rock and roll. Sweet. So my name is Michael Gamonal with ASVAB Domination. Everybody knows it's easier with a tutor. So most people who join my program get a lot out of it. And there's an old saying, you won't start making progress towards your goals until you have skin in the game. So invest in a tutor and you might be able to see those dreams come true if you're looking for ASVAB help or any other stuff. So Gamonal Tutors, let me know if you need me. Thanks.
Fantastic. Paula Williams with ABCI. Everybody knows that it is hard to make sales in the aviation industry these days, but most people could benefit from some proven tools and techniques and some good networking with good people who are reading good books and making some good progress.
Awesome. Well
done. I work for her. I do the back end processes around here, so I'm watching that.
By the time they get to you, we've already gotten through the brick wall. So.
That's right.
That's cool.
Cool. Go ahead, David.
I'm Dave Pearl at theflywriter.com. I write the words that give your message wings. We all have a message. We all can make it better. I'll help you do that.
Fantastic.
It's very logical. Very logical.
All right. Thanks, everybody. That was really, really good. And I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you guys, your thoughts on this.
Nice seeing everybody again.
We'll see y'all next time.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good stuff, guys. Bye-bye.